All right, tonight, GOP senators, they have until September the 30th to keep their word and now kill off Obamacare, or they're going to face consequences at the ballot box in 2018. Now, Senators Lindsey Graham, Bill Cassidy, they offered up an amendment that's gaining momentum, and Republicans, in my opinion, albeit imperfect, they need to seize this opportunity. Now, while meeting with foreign leaders at the UN, President Trump, he weighed in on this latest attempt to end Obamacare. Let's take a look.
I believe that Graham Cassidy really will do it the right way, and it is doing it the right way. It has tremendous support from Republicans. Certainly, we're at 47 or 48 already senators, and a lot of others are looking at it very positively. For 7 years, I've been hearing repeal, replace. We've been hearing how bad it is. We've been looking at the premiums go up. We've been looking at deductibles that have been through the roof. You have states like Arizona where the premiums are going to be worse this year than last year. Last year they were at 100% increase, 116%. I think there's tremendous support for it. I think it's actually much better than the previous shot, which was very sadly let down. I thought that when I won, I would go to the Oval Office, sit down at my desk, and there would be a health care bill on my desk, to be honest. And it hasn't worked out that way, and I think a lot of Republicans are embarrassed by it. But I have to tell you, I think they're going to do a great job. If this happens, it will be a great thing for the country.
I'll be the first to say this is not a perfect bill by any means, but we learned a lot about Republicans in this process. About 100 in the House, 7 in the Senate. They clearly had no intention of ever really repealing and replacing Obamacare. Now the question is, can we begin the process of making health care better for you, the American people? Or in the end, this is what it's going to come down to. You keep Obamacare, skyrocketing premiums and deductibles, and, of course, lack of health care options all around the country. It is crushing average Americans every day. So here are the big things that Cassidy and Graham, and what it does. It does replace Obamacare subsidies with block grants to states, and then states will have the flexibility to choose how best to spend that money instead of adhering to big government mandates. I've always believed in block grants. The massive budget-busting Medicaid expansion, that'll be scaled back. Insurers, they will be able to offer, finally, it's illegal now, catastrophic plans that people can actually afford. Obamacare, it prevents consumers from even having that option. Health savings accounts, that will be expanded, as well as cooperatives. Now, Republicans, they need to get moving. They need to start keeping their promises. We, on this program, we will continue to hold them accountable until it gets done and ultimately done right. Also tonight, well, Hillary Clinton, she is refusing to go away. The twice-failed former presidential candidate now attacking President Trump, what I thought was one of his best speeches at the United Nations, including taking issue with his term Rocket Man, the nickname for Kim Jong-un. Watch this.
I thought it was very dark, dangerous, not the kind of message that the leader of the greatest nation in the world should be delivering. We call on all nations to work with us to try to end the threat posed by Kim Jong-un and not call him Rocket Man, the old Elton John song, but to say clearly we will not tolerate any attacks on our friends or ourselves.
North Korea is not our friend. Now, here's the problem. The left-wing media in this country, you know what? They're losing it over President Trump in his speech, just like Hillary. And we'll give you the history lesson in a second. Watch this.
He wasn't a president. He was a preacher up there, given his dark world view.
It's difficult to applaud to a line that parts of the world are going to hell. This was a very somber, dark speech.
I thought that was one of many examples of how intellectually confused, if not outright incoherent, this speech was.
It's really frightening to hear an American president talk about obliterating any other country.
The rhetoric was irresponsible. It was put many world leaders on edge, and frankly, it was contradictory in many, many places.
I'd call it a simplistic axis of evil speech on steroids. I mean,
hold on, one more time. Simplistic axis of evil on steroids.
He's talking about going back to the 19th century. It may play to the base, but for most of the people in the room, they're going to leave with a lot of indigestion.
This was an unusual speech for an American president. Does it have any of the hallmarks of unusual speeches by other countries' presidents? Does this go down in the history of weird UN speeches?
It is certainly an unusual speech, a weird speech, Rocket Man, insulting Kim Jong-un.
here's what's nuts. They're more angry at Donald Trump than they are at the guy that's firing missiles over Japan on a regular basis, that has nuclear capability, that he may marry to ICBM capability and threaten the whole world. We'll have more on the insane liberal media with Joe Concha and Leslie Marshall in just a minute. But first, I want to get back to Hillary and give this little history lesson going after President Trump. Hillary has no business criticizing anybody on foreign policy. You want to know why we're in this situation? Because her and her husband, they set the stage for this dangerous situation for the entire world with Pyongyang. Because Hillary also had a direct hand, and she brokered this idiotic nuclear deal with Iran. Now, we all remember what a disaster the whole Russia reset thing was. And since Clinton, liberals, the mainstream, destroyed Trump media seem to have forgotten. Here's the Hannity history lesson. Let's flash back to 1994. That's the year Bill Clinton, he thought it was a great idea to trust a dictator. In that particular case, North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, who is Kim Jong-un's father. Now, Clinton tried to bribe Pyongyang, North Korea, into freezing and stopping the nuclear program, and he gave them $4 billion of your money in energy aid. And Clinton was so proud of the deal that he even went on TV and said, there's a good deal for the American people. Look where we are now, Mr. Clinton. Take a look.
This is a good deal for the United States. North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons. South Korea, with support from Japan and other nations, will bear most of the cost of providing North Korea with fuel to make up for the nuclear energy it is losing. And they will pay for an alternative power system for North Korea that will allow them to produce electricity while making it much harder for them to produce nuclear weapons. The United States and international inspectors will carefully monitor North Korea to make sure it keeps its commitments. Only as it does so will North Korea fully join the community of nations.
Yeah, a lot of good that worked out. Now, it's so easy to figure out what happened next because appeasement, capitulation of dictators, despots, it never works. And Kim Jong-il, he quickly broke his word, and by the end of the 90s, North Korea began testing missiles. Then in 2006, they conducted their first nuclear test, and then once Obama got into office, North Korea's aggression increased dramatically, all while Obama was literally gutting America's strategic defense capabilities. Then, of course, we got Iran. And Hillary Clinton leading the way early on, negotiating this disastrous nuclear deal there. She paved the way for Obama to give the radical mullahs in Iran over $100 billion, plane loads of cash and other currencies. And as terrible as that agreement is, well, you know what? That may soon be coming to an end. Listen to what the president said earlier today. Finally, watch.
Have you decided to stay or to leave?
Well, I have decided.
Okay. Can you tell us what your decision is?
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Now, this comes after President Trump ripped the deal during his speech yesterday to the UN General Assembly, calling it an embarrassment for America. Liberals, they're freaking out that the president dared to say what he said. But let's remind the left what they are defending. The Iran nuclear deal, that deal gave Iran up to $100+ billion in immediate sanctions relief. The deal does not prohibit the development of ballistic missiles. Tehran can partner with Russia on defensive missile systems, and Iran can buy anti-aircraft missiles. And after 8 years in conventional weapons, after 5 years. And the radical mullahs, well, guess what? They didn't have to destroy any nuclear-related facilities. Zero. Now, they, of course, can also deny access to certain nuclear sites. And Iran, on the other sites, they have at least 24 days' notice of an inspection. And they can pick the nuclear inspectors. And they're still allowed to spin their centrifuges. By the way, those restrictions expire after 10 years to 15 years, so they're still getting nuclear weapons. See a pattern here? Bill Clinton, North Korea, Hillary Clinton, Iran. This is dangerous for the entire world, and they're upset about Rocket Man.